He is one of the founding members and one of the best producers of all time in music history, Mr. Alan Parsons. How are we doing today?
Doing great. How are you today?
Wonderful, sir. So I'm just going to go over a couple questions. I know you had a fantastic career that is still growing today, but take us back to the beginning of musical time for you. And I knew you grew up in London, England. Which bands really led you towards the idea of music becoming such a huge part of your life while you were growing up?
I think, everything that I grew up with as a teenager was vaguely influential. But yeah, I think the Beatles probably. I was a huge Beatles fan back in the day, and I was actually working in a EMI department that was duplicating records onto quarter-inch tape in the mid to late 60s, and I through that experience I got to hear the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper, and that kind of clinched it for me that I was going to seek a career in music,
And then I know at the age of 19, how did you land that great gig at the famous Abbey Road Studios?
Well, like I said, I was working in this allied department for EMI, and it was just a case of writing a letter to the boss at Abbey Road at the right time. It was just good timing on my part. The manager was letting two other engineers go, and he seemed to think that I was adequately qualified to start training as an assistant engineer, and so it just came together.
And what was that experience like, Alan, being in that production studio, in the recording studio with the Beatles for the Abbey Road and the Let It Be sessions? What was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was obviously very you don't forget that experience in a hurry. It was just it was extraordinary. It really was.
And then I know after your experience with the Beatles, you became known as a fully fledged recording engineer, and you went out to work with the Hollies and did some solo albums with Paul McCartney. How did it all come about with you getting to work with the Hollies? I love that band.
Well, I started, when I got the job at Abbey Road, I started pretty much at the bottom, so, making, fetching and carrying tapes around the building, making tea and coffee, and, they used to call us button pushers in those days because we would just, because the only real contribution we made to a recording session was pressing the play and record buttons on a tape machine. So, I got assigned to Hollies sessions in my early years at Abbey Road, and we got to know each other, and I was let loose on the console, to start after about a year and a half working with them, and we made the first. I engineered the first record I'd done with them as engineer, and then from then on I did pretty much everything.
Then I know in 1975 you had the opportunity to work with the band Ambrosia for their first self-titled debut album. How did you fall into that great project with Ambrosia? How did that all come about?
Well, that just resulted from a phone call from them to Abbey Road. Interestingly, it was late at night, and I happened to be wandering near the sort of night phone, and I picked up, and there was this voice at the other end, an English voice, saying, "My name is Gordon Parry, and I'm representing this band Ambrosia, and we know your work, Pink Floyd, and we think you're the man to mix the album we've been working on." So I told them that I was going out for the Grammys because I'd been nominated for Dark Side of the Moon for a Grammy nomination, and I was going out to LA anyway. So we met up. They played me the album. I loved it, and we just made an arrangement for me to come back and mix it a couple of months later.
Very cool. And then I know the next year, in 1976, musician Al Stewart was working on his studio album, Year of the Cat. How did you become involved with that recording for that album for Al Stewart?
Well, I'd actually done one album before that. It was called Modern Times. So my history was a little bit longer with Al. I actually did a total of 3 albums with him. And Year of the Cat was the second of the series. It was, of course, the most successful. But I also did an album called Time Passages after that with him.
All right. And then how did you meet up with Eric Paulson?
Well, Eric was a songwriter and a slightly unsuccessful record producer. And we just met when he had booked another studio at Abbey Road. And we just got talking, and he suggested that with the success that I was having at that time as a producer, I mean, my production career had already started by then, that I needed management, so he offered to manage me. And then that went very well for a couple of months, and then we decided to start writing songs together, and came up with the idea for the first Alan Parsons, what became the first Alan Parsons project, which was based on Edgar Allan Poe's stories.
Yes, the Tales of Mystery and Imagination album?
That's right, yeah.
And then how did you come up with the 1980 classic hit, Games People Play? How did you come up with that concept for that tune?
Eric was was the principal songwriter, and he was usually the ones that came up with concepts. But Games People Play was on an album called The Turn of a Friendly Card, which is basically about gambling, about all aspects of gambling.
Okay.
So it's really just most of the songs are just observations on gambling and the disease of gambling, the bad side of gambling.
Right, and then in 1982, I mean, there was no looking back for Alan Parsons' project, as you guys stormed onto the American charts with a great tune, Eye in the Sky. How was Eye in the Sky invented, Alan?
There's so many ways of looking at the lyrics of Eye in the Sky. You could say it's a sort of Big Brother's watching you kind of, concept, or the Eye in the Sky could be a helicopter flying over a city for a weather report. It could be a hidden camera in a shopping area or anything like that. It's just really influenced by the notion that we can never be alone these days. I think somebody's always watching you. And
I love the track off the Ammonia Avenue album called Don't Answer Me. How was that song put together?
Don't Answer Me was kind of difficult to get to. I think we tried a whole bunch of different feels for the basic track of that song, and I was actually ready to give up when suddenly we came up with the idea of making it very big, echoey, Phil Spector-y sounding. So when we did that, it suddenly came together, and everybody started really liking it. So it became a song. I think at the time we recorded the track, the song lyrics didn't really exist. It was just an idea,
The great tune Days Are Numbers, The Traveler, was released on your Vulture Culture album in 1985. How did you come up with the idea of the young man that drifts from town to town in that song? How was that all put together?
Interestingly, I didn't perceive it as the traveling part. My contribution was the chorus line, which was originally Days Are Numbered with a D rather than an S. But Eric suggested that we make Days Are Numbers, which made it more mysterious. And although I wrote the melody to that whole song, Eric really came up with most of the lyrics.
So what are you working on today, Alan?
Well, my latest venture is an educational DVD video series. It's called The Art and Science of Sound Recording, and it's an entire TV series devoted to all aspects of sound recording.
Wow!
And it's a series of interviews with other engineers, producers, artists. There's a lot of technical stuff, lots of graphics, lots of scientific information, but a lot of insight into the creative side of recording from myself and other people.
Very, very cool. So where can people go, Alan, if they would like more information on it?
They can get it at either at my website, Alan Parsons Music, or there is a dedicated site called artandscienceofsound.com. But if you Google Alan Parsons and DVD, Alan Parsons DVD, you should find it, or Alan Parsons Educational DVD, that should find us.
All right, wonderful, Alan. And give me your main website once again so people can get more information on you.
It's www.alanparsonsmusic.com. That's one L in Alan, and a Parsons has an S on it, so AlanParsons music.com, AlanParsonsmusic.com.
Wonderful, sir. Mr. Alan Parsons, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, appreciate it. Appreciate the call, JJ. Thank you.